We'll get started. It's 10:32. Remember to turn your phones off. And we'll start with an invocation from Commissioner Majerick and pledge by Commissioner Harrison. If you wish to join, please rise.
Give me a minute, please. Please bow your heads if you want to join in. Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business. Through our weakness, give us strength. Through our discussions, give us clarity. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Please watch over all citizens living with illness and pain today. God bless America, Berrien County, our family, and as always, help us to drive safely. Amen.
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 Please join me. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Bell,
Here.
Curran,
Here.
Freeling,
Present.
Harrison,
Here.
Hinkleman, Majerick,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
Scott,
Here.
Ballraff,
Here.
Werfel,
Here.
Yarborough,
Present.
Elliott.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 12 present.
Thank you. We have minutes from a week ago, the full board meeting on the 15th. Any changes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Freeling, supported by Martin. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Madam Clerk, I understand we have one communication.
Yes, I received an email yesterday from the Michigan State University's Extension regarding upcoming events in Berrien County. That's all.
Thank you. There's another communication you didn't get, but it came from on high, that Commissioner Yarborough has celebrated a birthday this week. So happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So now you know you are the bars and the drink.
21.
You're old enough.
Yeah.
I'm 18.
Oh, all right. Well,
Flip it around.
gotcha. Are we ready to hear from the treasurer?
You've got approval of,
We did that.
okay, communications, you've done, yes. Yep, you are ready.
Shelley?
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having me this morning. This report that I am presenting this morning is now a requirement due to an amended General Property Tax Act that happened in December of 2020. It is now a requirement that I report no later than September 30th of the second calendar year after foreclosure. So these numbers that you're seeing represent the 2020 tax sale auction. Okay. So like I said, and from my understanding, there's going to be a sunset on this report of 2025. Whether or not that gets extended, we're not sure. So this report, again, is the 2020 tax year, which consisted of the 2017 and prior years delinquent taxes. Property taxes are delinquent for 3 years are foreclosed on March 31st. But foreclosure in 2020 was extended 2 times by executive orders issued by Governor Whitmer. The final date that we finally foreclosed on was July 20th. That was the final day they had to redeem the property. Shortly after that foreclosure deadline of July 20th, the Raffaelli lawsuit decision, which many of you, all of you are familiar with, came down prompting changes in the statute for us to comply to dispersing excess proceeds to former owners or parties of interest. So we'll get started with the report. In box number 1, I had 1,982 parcels that were subject to foreclosure in 2020. After the parcels that were redeemed entered into a payment agreement or had other reasons to be withheld, it left 189 parcels for auction. The total minimum bid for those 189 parcels was $430,490. Now that, of course, is your delinquent taxes, interest, fees, any costs associated that were included in that minimum bid. We had, in box number 3, we had 4 municipalities exercise their right to purchase properties prior to auction as their first right of refusal. They were New Buffalo Township, Orinoco Township, Grand Beach Village, and the city of Buchanan. Minimum bid for those 4 parcels was $24,343. There were no claims filed against those parcels, therefore, they only paid the minimum bid, which amounted to, again, $24,343 of those 4 parcels.
Question,
Yes,
is any of the $24,343 from the 4 properties sold to municipal governments, are any of them subject to Raffaelli by the, by us or by the municipality?
yeah, to date, there are no claims filed against those. So
Okay.
they will not be subject to any lawsuit
Okay,
or excess proceeds.
but could they on a
Yes,
municipal property?
possibly, but again, there wasn't a claim filed timely. But again, 2020 was such a goofy year,
Right,
and we are getting motions through the court after the fact, and I still have some outstanding that these attorneys are filing with the court, motions with the court to be heard for excess proceeds. So those are still being dealt with. So whether or not somebody comes forward on those 4, so far, so good.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. Of the 189 parcels offered, 177 of them were sold at auction. Total minimum bid for those 177 properties was $378,874. This again includes delinquent taxes of 3 or more years, interest, fees, and costs. Total amount that they sold for, $1,038,500. Box number, the next one, this box is a little confusing. And because it asks for the total amount of taxes, penalties, interest, fees, costs on the foreclosed properties, which I have listed as $437,666.14. This figure now has increased over the minimum bid due to the fact because we have settled on some cases and I've included attorney fees in there. Those are additional costs that we can recoup. So that's why you're seeing an increase there. So the total amount paid for all the properties, including the 4 government properties, along with the 177 sales, was $1,062,843. The total amount of proceeds that was paid out to 7 claimants already, $254,654.68. Now, per statute, prior to the disbursement, 5% of the sale amount is payable to the foreclosing governmental unit as a cost recovery. So that amount has been deducted before we disperse. So the net amount after subtracting out the proceeds claims from the difference in the amount paid for all the properties, the amount of taxes, penalties, interest, fees foreclosed, netted to $370,522.18. Now, again, as I said earlier, there are 2020 claimants that have not been settled yet. They will either be settled, hopefully prior to going to court, or they may become part of a class action settlement, which may be reached down the road. Again, there still has not been any decision on retroactivity. So that is still sitting in the high courts, waiting on that. And I do have claims for tax years 2021 and 2022 that have not been addressed yet. So that is my report. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions, sir?
Were there any large transactions that might skew some of these numbers? You know, when you start to do the averages, they're relatively they're not large property transactions, but were there any included that might have gone for, $250,000 or more?
This was our first year of doing the online auction.
Mhm.
Due to COVID, of course. It drew sales, it increased the amount of sales that we did receive because there were sales across the whole United States coming forward to purchase these properties. So I think that kind of jacked things up a little bit versus having an in-person auction, which mainly drew in your local people,
Sure.
your local crowd.
Have you talked with other treasurers about the same type of report and what they saw from their sales?
Yes, everything they have seen increase as well. Across the state, again, all of us county treasurers have to turn this report in. So the state will compile it. Whether or not we see feedback from them or not, I was at the county treasurers conference here about a month or so ago. And from what I'm hearing from Treasury, it doesn't sound like they're gonna do anything with it. They're basically compiling it. They might look at a few of the numbers and be done. And hopefully the sunset of 2025 will eliminate us from doing this.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Sir.
So to the board, the thing I would just highlight from Shelley's report is really the great unknown. We still don't have clarity on the number of years retro that claims can occur. And until the state legislature or the courts verify how many years potentially a claimant has, you're going to see similar operations both at this county as well as across the state. In the past, treasurers were pretty aggressive about dealing with blight, about dealing with demolitions. And until there's complete clarity on what are the goalposts for claims, I would anticipate you would see continued what you've seen over the last 2 years, which is a very cautious approach. A year ago, Shelley and I were on a call with the attorney that's representing Berrien County as well as the bulk of counties across the state. And it seemed like there was a window where they were going to finalize and agree upon, is it 1 year, 2 years, 7 years, or somewhere in between. That window kind of closed, and a whole lot more attorneys filed claims against their local treasurers, against their local counties. So the thing that I would just stress to all of you is Shelley is doing a nice job of essentially treading water while we wait for greater certainty from the state of Michigan.
And to add to that, Brian, we see, of course, that 370,000 that's remaining. We're not looking to transfer that anywhere until we can get a final decision on what we need to do with these claims. We've been waiting for 2 years and still no light at the end of the tunnel. I wish there was, because I'm ready to put this, let's move on and get into 2022. So But if you have any questions, think of anything along the way, my office is always open. Feel free to stop by, call me, email. But thank you again.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on. Public comments regarding resolutions, and that would include the two added resolutions ending in 6-2 and 6-3. If you have anything to say about resolutions, now is your time. See, the line is getting longer, so, right. Okay, we're gonna go to the consent calendar then, and that will include added resolutions ending in 6-2 and 6-3, is that, yeah. The one on the printing equipment lease and the one that Captain Adams talked with us about this morning, which is the one ending in 6-3. Anybody want to pull anything, or are we good to go? If we're good to go, is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Scott. Supported by Harrison. Discussion. Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Curran,
Yes.
Freeling,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Hinkleman.
Yes.
Majerick,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Allred,
Yes.
Werfel,
Yes.
Yarborough,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, you have 12 yeas.
thank you. Looks like we're going alphabetically on committee reports today, so Mr. Admin Chair, you're up.
Alphabetically, okay.
A, F, and P.
All right, we did meet this morning and Elvin Gonzalez, the Family Division Administrator, was in to see us first. He talked about the intake and court services, about developing a program to divert youth away from the court system. Hopefully, they can intervene before the youth becomes an offender. They have contracted with Family Empowerment Services, and so they will refer youth to this organization before they get arrested or before they get into the system. He's hoping that this organization will keep the youth out of the juvenile justice system so that he doesn't have to deal with them. He talked about firearm-related offenses and told us that the youngest firearm offender he's dealt with is 10 years old. It's pretty young. And then he talked about the shooting down in Niles and made note of the fact that the victims are 14 years old and 18 years old. He's finding that firearm-related offenses are being occurred by younger and younger youth. He talked about the juvenile center. I reported a little bit about this last time. They had the kickoff Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday had Whiteman and DLR looking at the old facility, looking at Napier, making all those plans. And he did make note of the fact that when the people looked at the existing juvenile center that was built in 1974, that they made note of the fact that that was a well-built building and well-designed building for its time. They were impressed. It's at the end of its life, but at the time, it was a very well-built building, very well planned out. Let's see, talked about vacancies. He's got 17 vacancies right now, and some of these have been open for years and some of them have been open for months. And I think that kind of holds true with what we talked about with the salary study and everything, as far as staffing goes. The only secure detention unit open right now is at the juvenile center, detention bed space in Michigan. They're all low because of staffing. And he gave the example, he said, there's not a lack of beds, there's a lack of staff to run those beds. So he said, you might have a 50-person facility, but because of staff, they can only run 25 or 30 youth in that facility. So he said, there's bed space. He said, they're just not staffed to run it. And we're in that same boat. He talked about detention of these youth while they're waiting for residential treatment. And he said they might wait 6 or 12 months in a detention facility before they can get into residential treatment. He said, we have 6 right now that are placed out of state because of that. There are 26 juvenile facilities statewide, 24 are run by counties and 2 are run by the state of Michigan. And that's all I have on that. Then we had friend of the court, Lisa Jardine, the director of the Friend of the Court. You know, she came on in August of 21st after Tom Watson retired. And first off, she appreciated all the changes that we made over there to the Friend of the Court when we pretty much remodeled and redid their floor plan. She really appreciated that. And she did talk about the establishment division, and Brian probably already knows this. During a capital budget request, the establishment division has 4 employees in it. They're at DHHS now. She wants to get those 4 employees into the courthouse, into the Friend of the Court space. So she asked for our support. So I'm throwing that out to everybody now. I don't know if you're going to carry the water for them, if you support that or not, Brian, but she talked about it and asked us to support it. If you'd like to comment, please.
We're in a budget review this week, and that was an active discussion topic of just essentially, we're getting squeezed on square footage at the court and trying to come up with a better way to accommodate some of the court staffing needs.
Yeah, because she said Robert Ray was involved in looking at the space and seeing how they can make things work. So,
yeah, continuing the discussion, we have probation staff working for the state in the courts. Some of those folks are still working on a hybrid schedule, work from home schedule. So it led to a discussion about looking, so we've got the FOC looking at the upstairs as potential options, looking at the downstairs as potential options, but without a doubt, the square footage pressure that we're feeling at the court, there are options, but it's going to mean that we have to get creative. We gobble up a ton of square footage for our IS department, for the mainframe, and on and on. So as we look at the courts, just know that it's very expensive square footage, and it's one that our own departments are somewhat competing with the court's needs. So a bigger discussion is occurring.
okay, thank you for that. She also talked about the collaborative efforts between her office and Cass County, that Cass County invited her staff, her and her deputy director, Carissa Grimm, for a leadership planning conference they had over at Cass. She was proud of the fact that Carissa Grimm has been appointed as a board member to the Michigan Family Support Council. She said they're also active in job fairs and that her goal or their goal is family independence. So she was really pleased that their staff is getting a lot done and being seen. She gave kudos to Chris Swihart in the IT department. They've upgraded their files to become electronic files now, so they don't have all the paper. And that Chris and his department was doing a fantastic job of making those conversions. She talked about weekly in-person order to show cause hearings are becoming less and less. And she said that's due to them being more proactive, getting out ahead of it and getting people before they get into trouble in arrears for their payments. She wanted to highlight a few staff members. Bev Eber, E-B-E-R, is retiring on September the 30th after 30 years of service to the county. Mary Molesky, she was hired in the prosecutor's office in January of '93, retired, then came back as a part-time staff attorney with a Friend of the Court, and she has fully retired in August. And Rosie Brock, who is a special investigator in the Friend of the Court offices, received the Lifetime Achievement Award from PACPAM. So she was rather proud of all of that. She thanked us for what we have done with the pandemic pay, I'll call it, and for the salary schedule. She was very appreciative of that because she has quite a few employees that fall into that category. We have a couple of resolutions that you will be seeing next time. Resolution ending in 361. This is for raised the age, where they raised the age for juveniles from 16 to 17. We applied to MDHHS for a grant in the amount of $290,000. This resolution accepts that 290,000. We got it. So that's what that resolution is for. The next resolution ending in 364, this is between the road department and MDOT, where we apply for permits to work within the MDOT or state right-of-ways. This resolution authorizes 3 people from the road department who may apply for those permits. And it is the road department director, the engineering supervisor, and the road superintendent. So it's basically Mark, Kevin, and Greg. Those would be the only 3 people designated by this resolution who can apply for those permits to work within the right-of-way. We had the board chair and the county administrator in. One topic came up after you left the room, and Brian, I don't like to put you on the spot. The trail policy. We understand, there's things coming to us that we need to get a policy in place. How are you coming on that?
We're progressing on it. We have a draft that's been floated between our outside consultant, between our road department staff, and then myself and Annette have been working on it. Put simply, the trail policy is going to be a fairly stripped down document that places heavy emphasis on maintenance. For projects coming forward for the board's consideration, the policy will give clear guidance. It doesn't matter if it's a local unit of government, a private corporation, a friends group, etc. They can ask anything as far as the development of trails, but they have to be able to show that maintenance funding is secured. And that is something that we've been trying to telegraph to any organization that is proposing trails. The presentation you saw this morning, that was heavy telegraphing by staff to that group, that maintenance funding for the trail development was critical. Does that help, sir?
That does. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, that's our report.
Thank you.
I have a comment.
Yes.
On the juvenile center, we have 6 that are out of state. Another one is going to be leaving shortly. The cost of that is $350 to $550 a day. They usually stay 60 days, and that 11 of our people are waiting right now. I don't know how the county wants to bear the cost of, if beds open up out of state, of that amount of money to send all those juveniles out for treatment. And if something can be done to maybe reopen our facility, that way we don't have to spend over $1 million, probably close to $2 million to send these juveniles out to Arizona, Nebraska, Utah. And then the families can't actually see them while they're gone and give family support. That's my only comment on that.
You have something?
I do. This is not new. I have to say this, my husband was a juvenile probation officer for 31 years, and so this is not new. There are sometimes things that the children need that are not local. It's not here. And so always the juvenile center has been sending young people, some to some other state. And I guess it must have been successful for them to continue doing it, but it's not new.
Well, my understanding from the report if we had the people that are put on pause in our facility, that we could take care of all the needs of our juveniles.
Probably not, actually.
Probably.
We've used places like Star Commonwealth for 30 years plus,
Yeah.
but definitely staffing is impacting us.
Yeah.
Other
But it would
questions?
sure cut down on the people we sent out
It would.
and the delay.
Any other questions for admin? All right, Madam Chair of Finance.
Thank you. We met with our chairman and administrator. And then we had a wonderful, long conversation with our building and grounds superintendent, Robert Ray. He'd like to be clear on how we want things to happen, especially when you see that we used to do all bids, and then we got where we added the waivers. And so what it was mostly, the subject was with the ARPA funds, so that we can do that correctly and follow the lines. It's new for everyone. And so we don't want to do some things that when we've spent the money, then the government to come back on us and saying you have to give it back. And so this is what Director Ray wanted to know, what do we want? And we as a committee said that we want these different jobs that they'll do to be put out for bids. It's federal money, it's tax money, and we want to do all that's right. And so we will be making those requests. But we also look at many of our, when we send out for bids, we send it to 6 companies and 2 apply, or sometimes there's 0. So everyone, every level there is short on help, short on materials, short on, you know that. And so we want to do this right. And that's what the time was spent talking about that. And then the bid openings, we did have bid openings with Jake Lideker, our financial analyst, and I'd like to ask Commissioner Scott to report on that.
This was for bids for cement replacement at Silver Beach Park. I believe on the north end, she said, due to high water washout of the sidewalk area there, the concrete. Sent it out to 6 bidders, 2 responded, Schembarger Asphalt, Berrien Center, and Pearson and Benton Harbor, Michigan. $12,690 to $10,580. We sent that back to the Parks Department for their purview to check the bid specifications and make sure that everything was on the up and up, and then to go with the lowest bidder. The next one was for the same type of deal, cement replacement, which turned out to be a trip hazard by where the benches sit off of the main entrance to Love Creek County Park. Sent that to 6 bidders, only 1 responded, Pearson, and that was for $10,640. So we sent that back to them too, to have to go with Pearson in order to get that done.
Yep. And then we had, we agreed to the resolution approving the weekly bills and road payables. You just voted on a resolution for a copier printer for a 5-year lease. And what we found out this time is the dollars are less for that 5 years than it was for the previous 5 years. So that was good news. We approved September 15th minutes, and then that's all we did. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for finance? Mr. Chair of Personnel and Human Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We also met this morning, went through our usual drill. We had a long discussion about some board appointments. One that you're being asked to take action on later on today. We had another individual withdraw their request to be on the mental health board, and so we've got that vacancy, as well as we had a member of the mental health board pass away. So we'll have 2 to fill, and so we'll be coming to you probably at our next meeting with the recommendations. We also reviewed and approved an advanced step hire for the health department. This relates to our nursing leadership team. And so it's a new hire that comes to us well qualified. So we did approve that. We heard from Jill Adams on the Parks and Recreation Department update. We talked a bit about the Bitzer grant that you acted on earlier regarding renovations to the shelter, old cabin out at Love Creek. We also talked about pending discussions on one property down in Niles, as well as where we're at with property acquisition up in the Waterville area. Then Jill also gave us some thoughts about the Spark grant, looking at playground equipment at Silver Beach for replacement. Then talked a bit about some of the trial efforts they've made to address backlog and entry and exit out of Silver Beach. So good meeting, good presentation information from Jill. And I think that pretty much covers our report.
Questions for BHS? Okay, and we'll move to board appointments, and before I forget, we talked about this in committee. You mentioned Dr. Lester. That's coming, right? Right now, though, we have a PHSC appointment of a Mr. Sam Felton to the Mental Health Authority, term expiring 3/31 of 23. Then we have Finance appointing John Janik to the Economic Development Board, term expiring 12/31/24. Brian Maynard to the Economic Development Board to fill a vacancy, term expiring 12/31/23. And Chris Marshke to the Brownfield Authority Board to fill a term expiring, 5/25 of 23. Bob, are you moving that appointment to the mental health?
Yeah, yes, we are.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Is there support? Moved by Harrison, supported by Bell. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That appointment's done. The 3 finance appointments, Madam Chair, are you moving those?
Yes.
Is there support?
Support.
Moved by Yarborough, supported by Scott. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Those appointments are done. You can return that if you would to the clerk. Commissioner reports, John.
I do have a brief report. 2 weeks ago, Planning Commission for the county met, and I just wanted to update this board that we are finalizing the draft version of the county's master plan. So that will then come to the full board for you all to review and give your comments. There'll also be a public comment portion of that process. So I just wanted to let you know, October, November will be when we will start to see those documents coming to this board. There were also some updates in Bertrand Township as it related to their ordinances. The other part that I just wanted to update this board on is last week we had a broadband task force meeting. And so September 29th, which is next Thursday, we don't have a meeting, but the BC BIT committee will, and it will be at 10 a.m. There will be a virtual option for streaming, but we'll also be here physically in this room. I'm looking at you like for confirmation.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So that will be at 10 a.m. here, and it will be a round table discussion for municipalities and other community leaders and stakeholders who have been helping participate in the broadband objective to be able to come and share some of the different talking things that we've highlighted.
One of the things that's on that agenda is the rollout of the draft DCS map. Did I?
Yep, you're
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
I
you're
got
done.
that. Yeah, no, you're
Okay.
good.
So to the board, this is a significant piece of work. We will be bringing forward the DCS mapping report to the full board. We anticipate having that in front of you at Committee of the Whole during the month of October. What we're trying to do is get this out to the various townships, especially the townships that have not submitted grant applications for broadband build out. It's an important piece of work. It's going to truly highlight gaps in coverage. So there's going to be townships where individuals know they don't have good service. Well, now the townships are going to have very clear evidence of things that are going well, things that are going badly. So to the board, I'll be sending the document out to all of you, but it's really something to pay attention to.
Absolutely. So I appreciate you highlighting that, because if you want to see some of the product, Van Buren just completed theirs, so you can see on their YouTube channel some of the mapping material that what it will look like. But the findings have been what we had found with the earlier survey, but much more granular, and it helps us to understand those areas that are serviceable that currently don't have service. The other part that kind of came out of our discussion for the BC BIT is the state has announced a new funding grant opportunity called Robin. We love all the acronyms out of the MyHigh office. We appreciate that name too, right? It's $250 million that has been appropriated, and the funding notice has not yet been released. They're anticipating that to be sometime the first part of 2023. And the reason that I highlight that in this meeting is because we're also hearing that the FCC's maps that they had stated would be ready by November have been delayed. The state of Michigan's maps that I think they had a similar timeline of November, December of this year are delayed. The action and the leadership that this board took by moving forward on mapping and getting this granular understanding for Berrien County is going to give us perhaps a great opportunity for some of these additional funding sources to be able to move forward on connectivity throughout the county. So that's my report. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I just echo that? It's not just FCC funding. It's not just state of Michigan through MyHigh, through Robin funds. It's now transitioning to emergency operations. Earlier this week, Captain Adams was engaged in an email thread with Chris Swihart, and I was just observing. But emergency operations now are being offered the ability to go after grant funding to secure essentially a standalone broadband network to connect your critical infrastructure, your first responders. So we're going to be attacking this issue in multiple ways. And it's not just going to be BC BIT trying to lead on this. EOC and our IS department are also looking at ways to secure funding to get us off of a monthly payment to AT&T, to Verizon, et cetera. Trying to have high-speed broadband connectivity that is a publicly controlled ring is something that we are striving to make happen.
Is that it for you, Terry?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, last week I participated in a planning meeting on juvenile justice with the courts. That was Thursday afternoon and Friday morning. And then this last Monday, I gave a presentation to a third grade class at Stewart Elementary on Constitution Day and Berrien County. And so they asked a very good question. And that concludes my report.
Yesterday I attended my first mental health authority board meeting, and it was very insightful and interesting, and I'm excited to be a part of that board. The bulk of the meeting was a lengthy discussion about just board governance and how the board is to make sure that the services that we provide in Berrien County, as far as mental health, is actually benefiting the community and all the different populations, the specific populations that they target, and what are the ends and what are the means that we're trying to reach. And yeah, like I said.
Excuse me, could you talk a little louder, please?
Yes. So yes, the Mental Health Authority Board meeting was very exciting, and yeah, I'm just proud to be a part of that board.
Good. Thank you.
I attended the juvenile center kickoff that I reported out on, and that's it. That's all I have.
Attended the MAC conference from Sunday until yesterday. I haven't got a lot written down, but they did have 12 breakout sessions, which were really had some great topics. The ones I attended on Monday was involving the electric vehicles and how counties need to prepare for this because, like it or not, they're coming. I also had a discussion on that Saturday with my son and my daughter, future daughter-in-law, who's works for GM and the battery department, and so that was a good discussion. From an old man who doesn't like new tricks. FOIA update Monday afternoon. It was a good session. These will all be in about a week. They'll be all on the MAC website, so you can check these out. There's some good information and good discussions in all these. The FOIA one was a lot of information on how we act now during our meetings, how you use your phone, your computer during the meetings that are on TV and people can see. So there's a lot of information there to help you maybe stay out of trouble. Challenge in law enforcement across Michigan was a very good discussion by the Michigan Sheriff's Association and a couple of their representatives. And they talked a lot about the same things that Sheriff talked about in committee this morning, was how to getting and retaining employees. And they did say Wayne County is over 30% down in employees. They can't get over that hump. Have been trying for some time. And the last session I attended yesterday was preparing for disasters. And there's a lot of things in there that we do here that was discussed there that it was kind of old news for me, but it was still good information. If you're not involved with our disaster committee, then, you know, there's things in there that you can learn. So other than that, I will move on to my colleague who attended with me.
Yes, I was at the MAT conference as well. We're in St. Clair County, Port Huron, Michigan. So way over at the border, actually, the conference center and the hotel were right underneath the bridge that crosses to Canada. So it was-
994 ends, exit 275.
It was,
You get
that
there or
was-
go to
that was
Canada.
fascinating. I had never been to Port Huron, so it was fascinating. But as Dave said, we had some great sessions. There was some sessions on broadband, healthcare, the rising healthcare costs, which we, have addressed here in the last few weeks. Energy, parks, challenges in law enforcement, and just the other conversations that we had with other commissioners, other counties, learning that we share similar issues and solutions, that how we can learn from each other. That's why these conferences are so good, to bring back that information. I know I've already sent a number of emails this week to people that, of things I learned. Some you may know, some you may not. But that's what we go to those conferences for. So it was an excellent conference. And I will add, next year, it's in Kalamazoo. So maybe we can have a great board attendance at that particular conference. And I think it's October 1st through 4th next year, something like that. So always the end of September, early October. Also attended the ribbon cutting for the trails over at Whirlpool last week. A great event, watched the bikes hit the trail. The first ones, I think it was a young man that was the first one. Everybody's standing there with their bikes ready to go, and this probably 15-year-old was like, "Well, I'll go," and off he went. It was excellent, and those are open to the public. So I reiterate that the trailhead is on Monty Road, so there's parking available, and bring your bike and go enjoy those trails. Had the parks meeting yesterday. We're facing some property challenges with the Madeline Bertrand addition. I know Thaddeus, Brian, Jill are all working on that, and hopefully we'll have some solutions on that coming in the next few weeks. Revenues for 2022 were very close to 21, which was a record year ever for our park. So who knows, we could still finish, if snow flies like they're saying it's going to, we could start early snow revenue down at Love Creek and Madeline Bertrand, you never know. And we could hit those numbers. October 8th is the final recycle event. It's in Buchanan. So that's the final event for this year. And I don't remember the date, and Brian, you can throw it in if you know it, but there's Biketoberfest at Love Creek coming up in October here. And that registration is still open. So please, if you're a bike rider, get out there and register for that event. You getting a date?
Yeah. I will have it in one.
Okay,
second.
and then I'll move on, because I also then, after I left Madeline Bertrand yesterday and ran from Niles over to Lawrence for the Southwest Michigan Community Action Agency meeting. And they were closing out the year for that, because that runs on the state calendar year. So October 1st to September 30th. We did do the budgets last night for next year, and they are anticipating almost a 30% reduction in services because of all the COVID programs that are running out. So they're ending and they won't be in the new budget. So a lot of those programs, there's some that they're still getting word that that might get extended for one more year, or it might not, or it might be modified. So they're still working through those things, but the action agency is looking at a reduction in services in 23. Did you get the date?
Yeah. And I just texted it to you, sorry. October 9th.
Awesome. So October 8th and 9th, two important dates coming up for the Parks Department. That's my report.
I also attended the trail opening. Up there was a well-attended event with bikers. So I waited till it was less crowded to go try the trails. And I still say that when they open it up so I can bring my trail motorcycle up there, I will be more happy. But it's a little more dangerous pedaling than it is, I feel, on something that's gas powered. Also, there was a mention last week about the water tower in Benton Township. And that's on Empire, that is by our own property where we're going to expand into. And I talked with the engineer and also the head of the water department in Benton Township. And that's a 400,000 gallon water tower. And all they're going to do is they're going to replace it with something smaller. There's still going to be another water tower there. It's just that 400,000 is way too much for them to do their circulation for water. So there'll be a brand new tower put up there. And the old tower will be operating until the new tower is up and tested and everything and being able to run. To go along with that, I asked them about the water going down Euclid Avenue on expansion for us. And there is a 20-inch main for water going down that road. And it is large enough to expand and put anything that anybody would ever want to put in there and supply water for any facility. And that's my report.
Question. Right, how big is the water tower in Bergen Center?
Before the end of the day, you will all,
Smaller than 400?
it is smaller. But
Can we dismantle and move the used? Would they buy a used one?
it's built into the Pearson report. I'm gonna look it up. I will email you all the answer to that question.
We deliver?
Actually, I might have it now.
Pre-owned, I think they call it.
Slightly used.
Send the water that way.
Only on Sunday.
eBay special.
I went also with Commissioner Bell, was running a little late, but I went to the Mental Health Authority Board. They also, when I was there, they were going over the budget and we passed the 2023 budget. Also, what they did a couple weeks ago, they signed a new contract with a new lease on the Niles, the River Red building. They're gonna abandon the old building, which they own, and they're going to move into from 2,500 square feet to 5,000 square feet across from the hospital. And they're pretty excited about it. They got some renovation to do, but it's going to open up South County and give them more people down there that they could give more services. And they did get all new chairs in their boardroom. They're really nice chairs. And it was a pleasure sitting in them last night, but that's my report.
I'm very happy to hear about the chairs, to be honest with you.
Maybe we can get your old-
Maybe we can get their old ones, I don't know. I also attended the BC Bit meeting along with Jim, and we really don't have anything to say about it. But that's why we elected Terry to be the chair, and she gives a wonderful report. So as far as BC Bit, what she said, the other thing, I had 6 different meetings. I'll call them meetings, but they were all phone calls and they were constituents in my district. And they had nothing but very bad things to say about the county road department, such as mowing the ditches and also scooping out the ditches for drainage. I explained to them that we have purchased the equipment to do the ditch work, but it's not being done. At least it's not being done in District 9 down by me. I don't know whether any of you others are having these issues or problems with mowing or digging the ditches out, but
Not at all.
then I really feel slighted, and that's my report. Thank you.
Okay. I think they go by number.
They must.
Dave is first. They go by number and you're first.
Oh, yeah.
I attended the ribbon cutting at Whirlpool. It was very nice, a beautiful day. And when I came up, I saw a lot of bikes on the back of the cars, so they were prepared. There was even a little boy, probably and his father, and so it's going to work. And I'm glad that we're involved in that. I also attended the Parks meeting yesterday, and we were at the Mad Burt Park. And we have some beautiful properties, so encourage people to go and see them and visit. And that's my report.
Thank you. Did you have anything?
Yeah, 100,000 gallons. I pulled that pretty quick. 100,000 gallon tank. Last inspection is on file from 2016. I do have a few updates for you. So Commissioner Curran already covered this, but Whiteman DLR has already done their kickoff meeting just for the group. They are under contract to do the site planning for the new juvenile center. They were here on Monday. They met with a larger group. Tuesday, Wednesday, they spent just going through every square foot of the juvenile center, meeting with staff, including court staff, including juvenile center staff, including buildings and ground staff, and on and on. That was step one. We anticipate over the coming 6 months, a whole lot more effort, but the work is underway. Other things that are underway. We are currently accepting applications for the animal control director. This is for the kennel manager. We have applications that have been received. We are continuing to cast a wide net for other applicants. This is a department head position. We will be going through the standard interview process. So Jim and I have already talked. He's chair of admin. Admin is the parent committee to animal control. We've looked at the applicants we've received. I'll be working with Jim and board leaders to pull together the interview committee, and then we'll be bringing this forward before the end of this calendar year. We'll be asking for a resolution to get that full-time position filled. On the same note, we are fast approaching the publishing of a job position, and that will be the public defender chief. So as you all know, the Paul Jancha Jr. is on the ballot, and we're coming fast to the point where he is running unopposed, and he will be leaving our department and moving across the street to a very different department as a judge. We won't post that until the day after the election, just to ensure that there's no complaints that we're making assumptions. We will wait until the election occurs. We will then be moving into the posting. I anticipate we'll have internal applicants as well as external applicants. We will again go through the standard process. That's one that, given the fact that we're waiting until November, we won't have it done by the end of the calendar year, but it'll be close. The reason I bring this to your attention is this is a big one. And as Paul exits from the organization, we need to make sure that we have strong, stable leadership in that department. 5 years ago, a whole lot smaller. It continues to grow. And what's interesting, what's really complimentary is the state of Michigan is using our operation as a model for what they're pushing to the rest of the state. So finding Paul's replacement is going to be very important. Last thing. At 8:30, I said thank you to Shelley. Now it's 11:30. I'm going to say thank you to all of you. You took a big step today. Final step on the implementation of the salary study is a big deal. You're not going to get overloaded with thank yous, but I'm going to say it right now. This is a positive step. There's going to be over 100 people impacted positively by this. It's not going to be the silver bullet to stop people from leaving, but it is going to help. And moreover, it very much sends a message to your department heads. It very much sends a message to over 700 people that this board is very aware of the situation, is very aware of trying to take steps to be bold and to express your appreciation for the work that's getting done. So to all of you, thank you. Those are my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. General public comments, name and town. Under 2 minutes.
And then, all right, so this. A couple questions. You've now appointed, at least what I'm hearing, 3 people in the road department to be permitted to do right-of-way permit work. You have a waymaster that's titled permit agent. Because he's the one doing it now. What's gonna happen to him? Is somebody gonna take that over? You got a new director out there that doesn't know much about roads. He's gonna look at a truck and say, well, gee, I'll give him a permit to drive down John Beers Road. And that permit's gonna be for 30,000 pounds. And you may have a truck that's 50,000 or the weight's gonna be 50,000 pounds. How are you putting somebody in charge that doesn't understand the roads and the structure around here? Waymaster's been doing that for what, 5 years, 10 years now? The other thing is, I defy any of you people sitting in this room, I mean, any of us, to drive down this road and you tell me which houses out here have got cable or whatever for internet. I have not seen one person. I have not talked to one person. I have not had one company truck drive down my road. And there's another person sitting in this room under the same thing. Now you tell me, I've got internet, okay? I got 5G internet. But I defy any of you to come to my, sit in front of my house and tell me I've got 5G internet.
2 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, sir.
Counselor Hager, Township.
I got a couple of things to say about that $1,000 bonus you're giving to the employees. No, that's, you're starting something here. That's called socialism. You know, socialism, pretty soon you're gonna have communism. You're gonna have the government run everything. I don't think it's, I told you last time, I don't think it's fair that you're giving $1,000 to those people there. Everybody else suffered along with the pandemic. You know, I had it. Nobody's gonna give me any money. So what I'm saying is, this hazard pay, you're starting something like in the wintertime, we had a bad storm and we're shut down for about a whole week. What are you gonna do? Give them the hazard pay money, give them $1,000, right? Because they had to work extra overtime. That's not right. That's kind of creeping up into socialism. You're asking the government to give you more and more, do more and more for you. And the government is not very efficient. It is a monopoly. You know what a monopoly is? You don't, General Motors is not the monopoly. Ford is the monopoly. Whirlpool is almost a monopoly. They keep buying out all the smaller appliance makers. So what I'm saying is, better watch it. And then you're taking money from the different departments. I don't know what gives you the authority to take the money out of the health department, this department, that department. What are you doing? You're dipping into their funds? I thought they had their own budget, right? And you're not supposed to touch it. When you had the road commission, you guys didn't touch that money. You got rid of the road commission. That's something that really worked. You should have handled it differently instead of destroying it. You almost did the same thing with the health department. Now you're doing the same thing with the animal control.
2 minutes, sir.
That's your way of solving the problem, isn't it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? All right, we'll move to other business. In case you forgot, we aren't here next week. There's a soft opening Monday afternoon that MDOT is doing. They contacted Jim because it's in Benton Township. Are you planning to attend? Okay. Terry, I believe, is going. I was going to, but I'm going to have to be elsewhere for family medical reasons. So if we're called upon, please do your stuff. The appreciation extended to Shelley and the PHS committee, I certainly echo. I'm mindful of communications that we have received pertaining to court, deputy clerks, deputy registers of probate, the county clerk's staff. This salary survey is a beginning of a process that needs to continue, and if everyone's agreeable, I would refer it to PHS to continue examining those areas in particular, because we certainly want folks to know that they are appreciated. You know, to paraphrase Jim from a couple weeks ago, all of these folks are essential employees. We've had a salary survey that took a while. It's been in the freezer for a while for various reasons, COVID and other things. And when we took it out, parts of it had freezer burn. Parts were still good, but there were parts that really weren't. And as Ezra noted, missing out on the local comparisons was a significant omission. Again, not attributable to you for your time. But we still have work to do. We still have people who need to know that they're important. And with that, Bob, it's coming to you for further consideration. Does anyone have any other business? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sure that Madam Chair was going to state this, but there's a trust advisory meeting at noon here in this room. And Mr. Chair, if I can just address some of the comments that came from public as it related to the broadband mapping.
Sure.
Each utility has to have identifying markings. And so the company that we've worked with is well knowledgeable of what those markings are. And so they've been able to determine what provider is in what area. But I also want to clarify, there's a difference between cellular service and those who get their internet through cellular distribution versus hardwired fiber, coax, or other type of services. Most of the funding that is coming through ARPA and BEAD and the FCC and TIA, those are all related to future proofing. It is technology neutral, but they are strongly encouraging us to look at and prioritize fiber or some type of hard wiring connection. And so cellular is mapped in a different way. We do have some of those layers that are available, but our mapping was strictly as it related to serviceable parcels through fiber or hard connections. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
Jim?
Okay, I just have one, might be a trivial thing that I need to bring up is a couple months ago, I remember we had that parking problem. And it was mentioned that we were going to have some type of ordinance that was going to go to that. I'm still getting questions from people that raise concerns to me about what is the where are we at with getting that ordinance with the county so we don't have that other
So
problem?
any reported problems specific to the courthouse have been addressed. We have the individuals who are using the courthouse have pulled their permits and have been signed by the admin chair. As it relates to the ordinance, I would say that corporate counsel has a pretty full deck as far as his time to dedicate to the ordinance. I would defer to him on when he can get that done. But it's also a question for the board if the ordinance review of parking is a higher priority. We can certainly treat it as a higher priority. It's not being ignored, but it's also one of many, many things, including the animal control ordinance rewrite, including defense on all of the claims that we're working through and on and on.
I just want to have an answer for the people that are contacting?
If I can just add that, so there is actually an existing parking ordinance on the books that prohibits parking overnight. It also prohibits parking from anyone who's not a patron or an employee of the courthouse. So the ordinance we have now currently prohibits parking by non-courthouse patrons. They already can't park there. The permitting process that we have creates an exception to that. So we do have the ability right now to issue civil citations to anyone who parks in the lot without permission, who's not a courthouse employee or a courthouse patron. So if we want.
Or has a permit?
Or has a permit, right. That's what I mean by permission. But if we want to change the contours of that ordinance, if we want to create additional process surrounding it, that's something that we could talk about, should probably come out of committee. But right now, I think we have the immediate problem under control.
We've added signage. We've gone through the process of making sure that anyone who was involved in using the parking lot was completely aware of the permit process. And I've met with that individual, I think 3 or 4 times. I had the chair of admin as well as the chair of the board meet with the individual, and they have taken action to ensure that they are now operating under the permit process.
And enforcement of that, like if something like this happens again, who is the notification to have it enforced? If they're there, that they would probably have to leave.
Well, so I think one of the issues was a notice issue, which is why the signs were created. We had the parking ordinance on the books. It's difficult to enforce if people who are parking have no idea that that's what the rule is. So the signs have gone up under the ordinance. It can either be the sheriff's office or the local police department, which enforces the ordinance.
Thank you.
Ezra and then Mamie.
Oh, I'll defer to Mamie. Go ahead, Mamie.
You can't park in the parking lot on Saturday and Sunday when we used to park there, there's nothing there. And there are signs up saying, don't park here?
So the signs have been written with legal review, law enforcement review. They have been placed. It now aligns with the ordinance. We also have pushed more information on the permitting process out so that anyone that is potentially using the parking lot on the weekends knows that they need to pull the permits and that the permit is a no fee application. So I believe that I don't believe there's any type of crisis here. But we have tried to be responsive to questions from commission members and also tried to be responsive back to members of the public.
Okay. Am I going to go to jail? If I go there? I'm just saying there are times when
I'll bail you out.
there's nothing there. And you're saying that people can't park there. And people that are having a protest or whatever, they know they need a permit.
Yes, ma'am.
They know. Or the day of prayer, they know. Okay.
Ezra.
Just one last thing on the broadband. BC Bit has found out that there are way more providers for broadband internet in this county. Companies we never even knew existed. And I just want that to be known. And also there are markings on any of the nodes and any of the boxes that are along the poles, or if it's hanging, there's numbers on those, and they can actually tell by the numbers who that service provider is, and then they can see that that connects up to these series of homes, so they don't actually need to go on the property because that's where you're being fed from. So they can find all that out without doing the trespassing or whatever. I just wanted to let everybody know that you don't have to actually go and knock on the door and ask somebody. You can actually see with a series of numbers and letters and whatever, who the provider is.
Any other business? All right, just remember, we're not here next week. See you 2 weeks from today at 8:35 a.m.